Will Trump testify at impeachment? Who will qualify for the COVID stimulus checks? And who is kept skeptical of the COVID-19 vaccine? These stories and more on your Not So News update. Starting us off from the AP, we have that Trump rejects Dems' request to testify at impeachment trial. Earlier this week, the House impeachment managers made a request for Trump to testify at his impeachment trial, which is scheduled for next week, I believe, starting on February 9th. And in it, we have the response from Trump, which is that he is rejecting the offer. From the AP, House Democrats on Thursday asked Donald Trump to testify under oath for the Senate impeachment trial, challenging him to respond to their charge that he incited a violent mob to storm the Capitol. A Trump advisor said the former president won't testify. Although Democrats might not have the power to force Trump's testimony, the request from House impeachment managers is part of their overall effort to put the violent events of January 6th on the record for history and to hold him accountable for his words. Democrats will be able to use his refusal to testify against him, as they argue that the ex-president has avoided responsibility for his actions. Hours after Democrats' request was revealed, Trump advisor Jason Miller dismissed the trial as unconstitutional proceedings and said the former president would not testify. Separately, Trump's lawyers denounced the request as a public relations stunt. This is going into the theory that they don't believe that the impeachment of a former president is constitutional, and it does seem there is a legitimate question in the constitutionality of it. There was a vote earlier last week pushed by Ron Paul, which ended up being a 55-45 vote, with all the Democrats voting together with 5 Republicans, saying that they did want to continue the proceedings, and 45 Republicans voting against the proceedings. Because 67 votes are needed for impeachment, it seems unlikely at this point that the conviction of Trump will happen. However, I do want to look at the response given that Trump's lawyers presented. From Jim Acosta, we have the following. Dear Congressman Raskin, we are in receipt of your latest public relations stunt. As you certainly know, there is no such thing as a negative inference in this unconstitutional proceeding. Your letter only confirms what is known to everyone. You cannot prove your allegations against the 45th President of the United States, who is now a private citizen. The use of our Constitution to bring a purported impeachment proceedings is much too serious to try to play these games. And then it's signed the Trump legal team. Something that I've really been trying to understand, and maybe someone in the comments can, give an answer to this, is because Trump is now a private citizen and they are convicting him under the high crimes and misdemeanors portion of the impeachment clause. I'm trying to figure out why no prosecutors have tried to charge the president. I'm assuming whoever the charge of prosecuting in DC would have just cause if Trump's language was breaking First Amendment speech, which is what the impeachment managers are trying to argue. They should have a case against him, and he is now a private citizen, so they can't go down the normal route that, because he's president, he's, not able to be prosecuted for those types of crimes. So, if anyone knows, please feel to comment. It's just something I've been trying to understand. Next, we have Trump was also on the outs of a disciplinary committee for an actors union he was part of, and here is his letter of quitting. Mr. Carteris, I write to you today regarding the so-called disciplinary committee hearing aimed at revoking my union membership. Who cares? While I'm not familiar with your work, I'm very proud of my work on movies such as Home Alone 2, Zoolander, and Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps, and television shows including The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Saturday Night Live, and of course one of the most successful shows in television history, The Apprentice, to name just a few. I've also greatly helped cable news television business, said to be a dying platform with not much time until I got involved in politics, and created thousands of jobs at networks such as MSDNC and Fake News CNN, among many others. Which brings me to your blatant attempt at free media attention to distract from your dismal record as a union. Your organization has done little for its members and nothing for me, besides collecting dues and promoting dangerous un-American policies and ideas. as evident by your massive unemployment rates and lawsuits from celebrated actors who even recorded a video asking, "Why isn't the union fighting for me?" These, however, are policy failures. Your disciplinary failures are even more egregious. I no longer wish to be associated with the union. And such, this letter is to inform you of my immediate resignation from the SAG-AFTRA. You have done nothing for me. Regards, President Donald J. Trump. What an I quit letter, right? I'm sure that in the disciplinary committee, they probably would have had Trump leave the union anyways, and revoke his membership. So it's definitely a Trumpian way to go out. Next, we have that from the Hill that Newsmax issues a clarification on Smartmatic Dominion claims. This is coming in wake of a bunch of Smartmatic lawsuits are coming down. I believe they are against Fox and Newsmax, if I'm not mistaken, as well as Rudy Giuliani. However, I'm not confident on those threes, but that's what comes to mind. The Hill reports the following. Conservative media outlet Newsmax issued a clarification on Monday about recent claims made by guests about a voting software company. The network suggested flip votes to President-elect Joe Biden. This was Mike Lindell of MyPillow, who's been, kicked off of all social media platforms. Newsmax would like to clarify its news coverage and note that it is not reported as true certain claims made about these companies. The outlet said in a statement posted online and read by host John Tobacco, there are several facts our viewers and readers should be aware. Newsmax has found no evidence either Dominion or Smartmatic owns the other or has any business association with it. The clarification comes after Florida-based electronic voting system company Smartmatic issued legal notices and retraction demand letters to 3 conservative outlets, including Newsmax, for what they said were defamatory and untrue reports about the company. They have no evidence to support their attacks on Smartmatic because there is no evidence. This campaign was designed to defame Smartmatic and undermine legitimately conducted elections. Smartmatic CEO Antonio Mujica said in a statement, "Our efforts are more than just about Smartmatic or any other company. This campaign is an attack on election systems and election workers in an effort to depress confidence in future elections and potentially counter the will of the voters, not just here, but in democracies around the world." This leads us to an interesting question of what the role of media companies is when there are election fraud claims being made by political parties, individuals, and campaigns. Is it right for the media companies to even give a platform to those individuals? I would rightfully think they should, because it seems fair that if there was a legitimate election fraud in a future election, then we would want that information to be presented. The question then is, something I've really just keep going back to is, what would a legitimate election fraud claim look like, and how would it be handled? I think, if anything, this latest election has shown us how fragile our election processes are, and we really need to find better ways at making it so there's more certainty when it comes to your particular vote being counted, and you having a way to verify that your vote has a signature to it. I often bring up the idea of doing something like blockchains, where you essentially sign the data of your vote, and that creates a key pair that only you can unlock to know what your vote was, but that then is put on a blockchain to make it so there's certainty of how the ballots are counted. Anyways, I think these are just questions to bring up for future elections. I really want to see election technology grow in the next 4 years in wake of what happened in the 2020 election. Next, the House votes to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'll refer to her as MTG, from committee assignments. This is in wake of her some previous remarks made regarding her threatening violence against other House representatives, as well as her showing support for QAnon. I think something that's missing from this following CNN article is the apology made by MTG to the GOP and also on the House, and it leads us to question what's a reasonable way to move forward as an individual, as a representative, and as a party. CNN reports the following. Greene said that she became very interested in the conspiracy theory and began posting about it on Facebook and talking about it, adding that throughout 2018 she was upset about things, and she felt she could not trust the government. The problem with that, though, is I was allowed to believe things that weren't true, and I would ask questions about them and talk about them, and that is absolutely what I regret, she said. Greene also said she believes 9/11 absolutely happened and school shootings are absolutely real, and every child that is lost, those families mourn it. In an attempt to put controversy behind her, the congresswoman said these words of the past and these things do not represent me. They do not represent my district, and they do not represent my values. The House just recently voted to strip MTG of her committee assignments, which is unprecedented from my understanding. It's never been done before. Normally, each party, kind of just accepts what each other says for committee assignments. And this just sets up, even what CNN has here, as a risky precedent for Democrats in the future. Really, the majority party can now take people off of the committees, which, in my opinion, could lead to some very dirty politics. Committee assignments are already pretty political within parties. Normally you want to be on an important committee, to get noteworthiness, and that's kind of how you rise through your party ranks, and get to leadership positions. So it'd be interesting to see if this has an effect in future House committees, if this is used before. I definitely think that there was an attempt by MTG to apologize for her previous actions, and I really want to see at least Democrats reach out and say that they accept the apology, even if it's just giving lip service. At some point we really just need to move on, and if someone's willing to apologize for these kinds of things, I think that's at least the first step. Next, from CNBC, we have that fewer people may qualify for $1,400 stimulus payments. Here's why. This is after a lot of campaigning was done in Georgia, saying that if they got the two Democrats into the Senate, that without a doubt there would be $2,000 checks for every American, and it seems that there's an attempt to walk that back. In the article, they say Democrats are reportedly considering sending $1,400 payments to individuals earning up to $50,000, $2,800 to married couples up to $100,000. According to the Washington Post, that's a decrease from the first and second rounds of checks, which started phasing out at $75,000 for individuals and $150,000 for couples. Meanwhile, Republicans have proposed sending $1,000 checks to individuals earning up to $40,000 per year, phasing out completely at $50,000. I think something that is noteworthy here is how there are phases out in general on both sides of the aisle. So we're already, below what the original claim was made. Whether you support that or not is up to your, personal politics. They do note that the Democrat plan is not yet made public. It's also interesting to see if Manchin will sign on to this. He is really the major swing vote that Democrats need to worry about in the Senate. And he has already announced things like he doesn't support a $15 minimum wage. He's come against the filibuster. It looks like he has a tendency that he may flip over to the Republicans for a lot of votes, and it looks like he's really not looking at giving into the Democratic agenda. So we'll see how things proceed from there. Finally, from The Hill, we have an article that young Black Americans are more skeptical of COVID-19 vaccine than elders in a survey. We've done a lot of recent reporting on why there's skepticism of the COVID-19 vaccine, from things like, how, it was made by Trump, who has been called a racist, fascist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi for the last 4 years. Also, we had multiple mayors, politicians, and even the vice president say they wouldn't take the vaccine. So it seems only, in my opinion, pretty obvious that people would be skeptical of the vaccine. And it makes sense that young African Americans would be more skeptical, as they fall more behind, cultural trends and see the influence of these politicians. But The Hill gives the following. A new survey from the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases looking at vaccine skepticism in the Black community suggests that people are sharply divided by age, with older Black people more likely to say they would get the shot. The survey, published on agency's website, found that 30% of surveyed black adults in the US say they will not seek to get vaccinated for COVID-19, with another 20% unsure if they will or not. That number sharply rises when older black adults are excluded from the sample. 41% of responders ages 18 to 44 say they will not get vaccinated. 68% of responders aged 60 or older said they would seek to be vaccinated. This just is how divisive our COVID-19 politics have been in the last year. I think, like most people, I think that in general, we've seen how divided we are as a country. Masks became political, social distancing became political, vaccines became political, and I can't say the left or the right have been particularly consistent or, good about the way they've gone about, giving out information and all this. I think this almost hits the same point that we saw with the MTG report. I think when you make a mistake, you need to own up to it. And that's something that we didn't see from the government. When they said that masks didn't work and then came out a week later saying masks were mandatory, at some point you need someone to say, I own up to my mistake. And this is something we need to do as a country. You need to be willing to own up to your mistakes, and also you need to be willing to accept it when other people do that. You need to be willing to forgive, you need to be willing to move on, and you need to be willing to forgive yourself. This is your February 5th Not So News update. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and have a good one.